said, Ma, stop it, stop it. I got accepted into the teaching program. I'm gonna have to quit my job at Banana Republic and start going to school at City College in New York. And she just
Hi, y'all. I am Makini Campbell, certified life coach and high performance consultant. My passion is helping people align with their purpose so they're stepping fully and walking into their power. I hold space for real, honest conversations with professionals, visionaries, everyday people, and change makers and outliers who are courageously walking into their calling. I believe in sharing stories, honest stories, mindset shifts, and practical tools that can help us all refuel, refocus, and reignite our passion. My mission is simple: to guide you towards clarity and confidence so you can show up with intention, embrace your gifts, and live in alignment with your highest potential. Welcome to Purpose to Power. At four.
yes.
Yes. So welcome, Akosua
Thank you.
more.
Thank you.
Thank you for being my first person sitting in this chair to engage us to talk about your purpose
hmm
that turned into you standing, into your power.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you
yeah.
for letting me be here. This is wonderful. I'm excited. I'm excited, especially because of our relationship and the way things come, full circle. And it's just nice. It's really, really a good feeling.
Very heart centered, very heart
hmm
centered. And part of this podcast is to really talk about stepping into your power, but also have real conversations of just how you got there, you know,
hmm
how you
hmm
got there. So one of my first questions for you is like, what season are you in right now?
Um, I think I'm in like a vulnerable season,
Mm,
when it comes to myself personally and my career, what I'm doing right now. And the reason why I say in my career wise is because like I do what I do. I work as a genealogist for the show. But you have this idea that this is, because this is what you love, this is what you're going to do forever. But because I work for a show, I have to think, in terms of the show may not always be around, and what am I going to do to not switch gears, because this is what I love to do, so this is what I want to continue to do, but to add on to you know what it is that I'm doing and make it a little bit bigger and make it a little bit more visual. So like right now I feel a little bit vulnerable because I'm like,
mm,
I've jumped out of teaching and then I'm
yes.
now into this, and now I have to take this and I have to kind of like expand it, and my idea of myself is like always questionable. Like, am I capable? Am I going to be able to do this? And so
Wow, wow,
that's
wow.
really kind of, I think that's one of the places that I am. And then I'm in like, this idea of just challenge yourself, like
Mm,
just do it,
right,
step up
right.
your game. It's always like a step up your game type of thing. And so I think that's where I'm at right now. It's teaching me to be to pay attention, to
Mhm,
be a little bit more open-minded about what I feel like I'm capable of doing,
mhm.
um, to let other people in, to
Receive,
accept,
receive, receive.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
to
Yes.
accept, what it is that people see that I'm capable of that I may not necessarily see, or just to accept opportunities, just simply like this one,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
you know, uh, not to kind of like put myself in a position where I'm always just, okay, all I'm doing is genealogy and I'm just at my computer and all it is that I'm doing the research,
Right.
I need to broaden, accept those opportunities that allow me to kind of like broaden my perspective.
When you first called into this purpose of yours as it relates to genealogy, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Sometimes you really don't, especially when you're young, you don't know where you're going to end up. And even me, deciding to teach. Like before I decided to teach, I was doing a whole lot of other things. And I was, my life was like a little bit messy and questionable. Like I had graduated from college. I had been working, but I still wasn't working. I majored in mathematics in college.
Mm-hmm.
And most people go into education or go into engineering, continue, into the sciences. And to be honest, I really did not have an idea of what exactly I wanted to do. And so I was working working a job. And then, I picked up and I moved to New York, and I moved to New York by myself without my oldest child who's with you. But I picked up and I moved to New York, and I was working as a manager for Banana Republic. And still,
Mm-hmm.
I loved retail, I love fashion, I love that side of things. I love the busy work, I love hospitality, I love talking to people. But the question was like, is it what I'm going to be doing forever?
Right.
And
Where's it going?
to be honest, like really in New York on the train, I saw a sign for, that kind of threw off these questions like, do you remember your elementary school teacher? Or do you remember like
Mm.
these little things? And they would have it would be on the trains and all of these little
Up on the,
panels
yes,
on
yes.
the panels,
Oh,
and
that we
would
all
have all of these
read.
questions. And then it would be, and then one was like, oh, do you want to get your master's for free or something like that? And I had already
Mm.
went to school to get my master's, and I had a full fellowship, and I dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always said, I'm not going back to school unless somebody's going to pay for it. Because I knew that that was a possibility, because I'd already had a fellowship where, they were paying me to be in
Right,
school.
right.
So when I saw that and I saw, oh, it's a teaching fellows program, I was like, you know what? Let me try this. And one of the main reasons why I took that leap was because I had moved up to New York. My daughter was down in Atlanta with my mother, and my
Mm-hmm.
mother had this idea. I know she always had this idea in her head, like, what the hell is Akosua doing? Like, what is she doing? Like she's like all over the place. She has no purpose, What is she doing? And when I saw that, and knowing that my mom was a former mathematics teacher in New York, and she would just wanted to see me make a decision, a positive and decision on life and excelling my life. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do this. And
So
I applied for that. Yep, I
that
applied
was the
for that.
moment.
That
That
was
was
the
the
moment,
moment.
that
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
moment. I applied
Mm.
without letting her know.
Mm.
And I had gotten accepted into the program. And I remember walking to the train, going to work at Banana Republic, and my mother calling me and saying, she started fussing, and she was like, oh, in my ears, making these comments like, oh, my mom doesn't have any money and da 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 da. And I was literally going into the train station. I said, Ma, stop it, stop it. I got accepted into the teaching program. I'm gonna have to quit my job at Banana Republic and start work and start work. And it was quiet. It was quiet,
Silence, silence.
silence, so
Wow.
that was the moment one of the moments I realized that, you know what, I can do this and I have a purpose. And I never really questioned whether I was capable of being a teacher.
Mm.
And being in front of the classroom, and being responsible for someone else's children. I just never questioned that. So once I got into teaching, I loved it. I loved it mainly because of the relationship with the students.
Oh,
It
it
wasn't
takes
always for me about the math.
right, right. So it takes extraordinary human beings,
Mm-hmm.
right, to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos for shouting out your mom, right? Because it seemed like she was a very pivotal person
Mm-hmm.
in your life that
Mm-hmm.
kind of moved you a little bit forward and
Mm-hmm.
advanced you with your career. So she's had quite an impact,
Yes,
you would say.
definitely. Definitely. And a
Mhm.
lot of people in my family. I mean, my mom was a high school mathematics teacher. Her sister was she had two sisters that were elementary school teachers. I mean, my father worked for the city. He was an architect for the city of New York.
Wow.
So we came from a family unit that worked hard,
Hmm.
period. I
Hmm.
mean, they worked hard and they raised their children, but they were very, very much community oriented. And so, I never felt like I was afraid to, insert myself into the community. Just, and teaching was something that, in college, a lot of my college friends who, they went straight from college and went into education.
Right,
Here it
right.
is, I'm behind. But I just, it just was something that kind of came, natural,
Naturally,
hmm
right, right. I could definitely identify as my father was an educator and I fell
hmm
right into education. But how did you discover what truly matters to you? Because there has to be, okay, my parents were educators, this naturally comes to me, right? But how did you shift to what truly matters to you?
hmm Um, I think that when it came to the education part, um, the s- the the students really probably made me start to realize what really mattered. Because I started to feel like the education system was kind of was was it really put them in a box, and it wasn't really showing them, what they could possibly do in this world.
Mm,
And when you start really going to your meetings with your colleagues and your principals and things like that, and you start realizing that this is really just about, this is really just about them pushing off those numbers.
hmm
It started to get to me, because I
hmm
started to realize that some of these kids, and especially probably especially down in when I started teaching in Georgia, these kids had, because it's so funny because the students in Atlanta probably a little bit more clingy than the students in New York, is one thing that I realized.
Different cultures, yeah.
Yeah, different culture, definitely. And they used to always ask me about the culture of the students in New York. They'd be like, "Oh, Miss Moore, how are they different?"
Mhm.
And I just said they learn independence a lot earlier than you all,
For
because
sure, for sure.
they're responsible for getting themselves back and forth, to school every single day.
Right, right.
But I started to realize that these young students they had issues. They had things that they had to, they were dealing with. And these are the things that were not being addressed, as I'm standing there teaching
Math.
exponential functions, at the
hmm
board. Like,
Right,
it
right,
just wasn't being addressed. And that's what made it easy for me to transition out of teaching.
right, right.
When I realized that, yeah, my connection to the students, I love it, I love it, I love it, and I'm going to do whatever it is that I can to help them understand, what it is to, try to excel in what you have to put into it. But um, I realized that standing in front of this blackboard, this, Promethean board, or, this wasn't going to get it. It
So,
wasn't going
so,
to get it.
so that shift that you made,
Yes.
talk a little bit about that shift from transitioning from the mathematic teacher to the part-time or the full-time genealogist,
Yeah.
along with your role as a mother.
Yes.
I mean,
hmm
it takes a lot of, courage to do that.
Yes. So the genealogy thing was interesting because it's actually started off, being part of a group called the Sojourner Truth Adolescents Rights Society. My family and our families, knew that it was important for us as young women to go through an initiation from that stage of being a teenager, into a young adult, a young teen, a mid-teens, you know, um, and a woman, period, and what
Mhm,
we needed to do in order to, or what we needed to know in order to start feeling confident about ourselves. And so I was in a program in which I had to, it was an initiation program. It was 5 of us, and we were responsible for creating a family tree.
mm,
And I was 14 at the time. And I didn't have any grandfathers living, but I had two grandmothers who were still alive. And we had to, we had to interview family. I interviewed them, and I built my tree as much as I can. It wasn't until and I was around family all the time, and we always talked about, family, and my grandmother would tell us little things. And so those kind of stories kind of stuck around. But
mm.
it wasn't until ancestry.com came out and they had these commercials, and it's like, oh shoot, I kind of have a head start already. Let me see
Right,
what's
right.
going on. And really, that was kind of like the spark. I was pregnant at the time, when I started doing this research, and it was like immediately I was like, wow, like this is really interesting. And one of my cousins, Olafemi, he had already been like little by little over the years, like picking up stories and recording my grandmother and things like that. And so it just became an obsession. It
Wow.
really became an obsession to the point where, like, I'm in class with my students, I give them work, I'm on ancestry. I talk about
That's what you thought
ancestry
about.
while they're working. I would show finding your roots on the Promethean board, like, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So if they were going to have a distraction, they needed to be watching this show. So
Right.
it was just things like that that I was doing, and then literally I got connected through Ancestry through with my friend and colleague now, Kimberly Morgan. She sent me some emails in regards to some work that I had been doing on the family tree. My third great granduncle, Stephen Binyard, who was a United States color troop. And that that communication made me realize that there's other people out there who,
Hmm.
I mean, I had already been part of like chat groups and things like that, but that like one-on-one communication and the fact that she knew about my family member who I'd already been researching and dedicated so much time to,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like this is a thing, and it could be a bigger thing. And really, she kind of helped spark that because we started doing presentations in, South Carolina. And these
Wow.
are things that I didn't know I was capable of doing, standing up and talking about what it is that, genealogy. And at the
Mm.
same time, I'm still teaching. So,
Wow.
um,
Wow.
after that happened, opportunities just kind of started fall into place that had to do with this genealogy work. And
So
um,
you kind of aligned.
it started aligning. I started doing
Hmm.
work with the Army, through
Hmm.
it's the firm, the private investigative firm is contracted with the Army, and we're doing genealogy work through them. I was doing that part-time while I was still teaching. And then Kimberly, she started working with Finding Your Roots. They brought her on initially just like full time.
Hmm.
And she kind of talked me up and told them like, yo, you need to hire Akosua. Like, you want a African American woman on your team, this is the person who you need to go for. And so
How important is that to have people in your corner that's
mm,
speaking about you in a room that you're not even in?
yeah, I didn't realize how important it was until it started happening.
Mm,
I
mm,
really, really did not realize how important that was. I don't, I've never been in a position where I felt like somebody had like talked me up,
mm.
into, not to say that people haven't, but
Right.
I've never been in a position where, um, yeah, where somebody had talked me up in a space that I was not in,
Right.
and
Mm.
found me fully capable of doing the
In this
you know
work.
what the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not only that, I'm going to speak on it. Kimberly is a white woman,
Mm, mm,
and
mm,
I have definitely had never experienced that, coming from anyone in the white community. I
see.
First of all,
Wow.
us, we were raised in,
Right. Right.
in communities that were just,
That look like us.
that looked
Yeah.
like us, and
Right.
everything that we did was, for our community.
For
And
sure.
so, because Kim and I had made this connection through genealogy, and we had already started working together, and she was in that position, she found it I don't think she even questioned it.
Right.
It was
Right.
just something that she did. and she believed in it.
Mm.
And um it wasn't a risk,
Right.
it
Right.
wasn't a risk for her. And
Because she believed in you.
right,
She saw your
right.
work and
That
your
is,
worth.
yeah, that is how I feel. And so after working after working actually for a few weeks with them part-time, I already knew. I was like, oh, this is about to be a full-time
Yeah.
situation. This teaching job is
Wow.
about, they gonna have to get ready because I'm gonna be ready to go.
So let me ask you, were there any challenges that might have come up as you were making that shift from teacher to full-time genealogy? Were there
I
some
was
challenges?
worried, and I was mainly worried because, teaching can go on for a good amount of time, and you can have a pension and, and some kind, you can have, you have this support that, that you're building for when you're not teaching anymore, when you're not in that position anymore. And coming into this doing genealogy full time, I'm now an independent contractor,
Mm.
and so now I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my health insurance. I'm
Yeah.
responsible for trying to see if I can save some money. I'm responsible for all of these things that I
Managing.
need in order to take care of my family. And
Right.
so that was like the questionable thing, like, gosh, am I going to be able to do this? Like, am I going to be able to do this? And, and I just, I knew that at the time that I would have needed to stop teaching and go into this, my children were getting ready to go from middle school to high school.
Mm. Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this because this will allow me to be home. I can work from home and I can make sure that my children are going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? In their transition from their middle school to high school. And I mean, they even now go to a school that is not even in our area. So every day I would drive them to school and I pick them up, and so that
Wow.
opportunity would not have been there had I not taken this position. So yeah, did I feel like it was a risk? Yes, it was a
But you
big risk for me.
you took a chance on yourself.
I did.
You took a pause to be there for you and your children,
Hmm.
as you've been there for other people's children
Hmm.
for 19 years.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I did.
Wow. How'd that feel?
Um, I didn't realize I didn't realize how good it felt until it just really felt good. Like
Wow.
I, like wow,
Yeah.
it just I never realized that I was going to be able to be in the presence of my kids all, you know what I'm saying, all
For
the
sure.
time,
For
and
sure.
then that I was going to have this flexible schedule of where I could do what I want to when I want to, and then it opened up other things and opportunities for me to be able to travel, and I absolutely love traveling. And so I
Yes.
can travel, I can pick up and go anytime I want to.
Mm.
The money changed. Yes, even though I do have to pay my own for my own
Health insurance.
expenses, and
Hmm.
everything. Yes, the money has changed, and that made a big difference also. Um, and I'm still learning because, I'm still in this job and I'm still learning about this
Mm.
job
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
about what I'm capable of. And that's the process that I really, really, really enjoy. I'm not in a redundant situation when I'm doing this research. Everybody's genealogy is different. And everybody is going to experience this journey differently. And so, um,
It feels good.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I
That's
took a
a
good
good.
risk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good. And we're enjoying what's being uncovered.
Mhm.
I know you have episode 9. You started at episode 9, but you have a few episodes that are coming up that are pretty exciting. I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, a little snippet about that, if you could.
Yeah, you know what? This is probably this new season is probably, and I have to even look at the roster because you do so much work and it's just going and going. You like forget
Right.
who you've worked on, but
Uncovering who you're
you're right,
uncovering, right?
right. So this season is actually season 10. Season 9 was the first season that I worked on, and I was working part-time. Season
Okay.
10 is what is the first season that I started working full-time, and I actually had my own guest. When I was working part-time, I was working with the two genealogists who were on the team, and I was assisting them with their guests. Season
Okay.
10 started. Now I have my own guest that
Wow.
I'm working on from beginning to end with the production team.
Awesome.
And that was even something to learn. But one thing about it is that we have a great production team. Everybody who works for this production company has been absolutely wonderful. And so, and we get along, and we feed and we share, and and so that experience has made this really, really great for me. Because
Can I
I've
ask a
never
quick
been.
question?
Hmm.
So when you're saying lead production, that means when we tune in to
Hmm.
season 10, we're going to see you at work?
No,
You
well,
think? Okay.
you don't necessarily. Okay, so you don't ever really see me doing any work
Hmm.
um when you turn on the show. the
Okay.
t- what happens is, like, right now we have two lead genealogists, myself and Kimberly Morgan. Every
Mhm.
time we get a guest, the guest is the team is comprised of a producer, an associate producer, and then two researchers. And
Hmm.
so usually for one guest, it's like a team of five solid people who are
Okay.
working on that guest's research.
Okay.
I'm doing all the genealogists do all the initial research of compiling all the documents and everything that they can find. And then we all work together, to the producer, looks at the research and decides what stories they want to tell out of this. And the
Okay.
producer, and they write the script. And so
Okay.
that's really how that goes. It's like a whole process. And I don't think people realize that with the show, this process is going on a year and a half before you even see that
See it.
episode.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And
Okay.
so the season that's coming up now is season 12.
Hmm.
But this stuff was done, a
A
year and a
few years
half,
ago. Right.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
ago. Um so that's why I say you kind of get caught up and kind of lost in it, because you're like, oh, wait a minute, who am I working on now? Or what season are we in right now?
Right.
I'm working
Right.
on
Right.
season 13 guest, and season 12 hasn't even aired yet. But they did recently release the season 12 guest that you will see at the first episode, I think, airs on January the 6th.
Okay.
And I have Chris Paul, who I worked on actually 2 years ago when I first started, but the production, the actual executive producers, and they decide when they want a particular thing to air. Sometimes they have to delay, even though the guest taped a long time ago. They may have to delay it. So Chris Paul and Sanaa Latham, those are two guests that I worked on years ago that are now showing up in the new season.
Mm.
Um,
I find that interesting because this is Chris Paul's last year playing. This is his
Playing.
retirement year. So he'll, get all of his kudos. So this is
Yes.
the perfect time. You see how that works?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's
Mhm,
funny because I have a friend who's a friend of his, and when they released it, and he posted on Instagram that,
mhm.
he had done the show, and that he was, looking forward to the episode. And I text my friend, I was like,
Awesome.
let him
That's
know that I did this
awesome.
work,
That's
um,
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
so
Kudos to you, because see, people don't really give that props to the behind the scenes, and we don't get that story of how this stuff works. You know what I
hmm.
mean?
And
So
that has
I'm,
been on my mind a lot. That has been on
yeah.
my mind a lot because, yeah, my friends know what I do.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
family knows what I do.
Hmm.
And they praise me for what I do. And I even do praise myself, but I don't really put it out there in public. And so now that's another thing, getting past that challenge of, giving yourself, kudos out in the open, you
Patting
know.
yourself on the back. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Own it,
Yeah.
standing into your power. Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to do
Exactly.
that a little
And
bit more.
yes, and we have to, I'm learning, I'm in that process of learning where that power is at. where it comes from, how I'm going to use it, harness it and use it properly to
Awesome.
to move forward.
So
Um,
let me ask you, what habits or rituals support this standing in your power, your mental, emotional, spiritual well-being? What are some habits and what are some rituals that you have going on?
that's interesting. I saw, that, and I saw that question, and I, I've felt not really failed at that, but I don't practice it as much as I used to. Like I was trying to get into meditation, and I started to realize that the times that I would try to start this meditation, I was like really chaotic up here mentally. And so
Mm,
things would just I felt like I was constantly interrupted in the moment of trying to meditate. And I was being interrupted by whatever was going on, whatever stresses were going on in my life and my household. And so one thing that I have I'm probably too good at is kind of like setting myself aside and just taking on and doing whatever is necessary to, get the job done. And so
right.
I've probably neglected um myself when it comes to tuning into my, what I need to do spiritually, and what practices I need to take on. Probably the most the what I've made a habit of is traveling. And I,
Well, that's a form of
and that's I think
self-care, yes.
that's probably it, when I
Mhm.
when I leave the space that I'm in sometimes and just have an opportunity to kind of like be away, you
Right.
know,
And give yourself
um,
what you need.
it gives me a little bit of reset, and
Right.
I'm glad that my family and my children have allowed me to be able to, to travel and do these things and step away from them for a little while.
Mhm.
Um, without feeling like I'm just, running away from whatever it is that I need to
Right,
be
right, right,
focused
right,
on,
right,
because it's
right.
hard, me, I mean, I'm raising my children, as a mother by myself, aside from me having my mom and my
Extended
aunts
family.
and uncles and things like
Mhm,
that. But
mhm.
I'm still, it's still me and them in this household, and so I have to be conscious of that. And so like when I'm getting ready to plant, I'm like, do y'all mind if I go out of town and do this? I'm always asking them. But that's
Right.
probably it. That's probably that's the most consistent thing that I do, to kind of like calm myself down and give myself a reset.
Mm-hmm.
And I am hoping to be able to add on other practices, meditation and journaling and those type of things, because I do believe that it's very, very important for us to be able to do. And I want to use myself as an example for my children to be able to
Daughters,
do that
yes.
also. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. Make it a common practice so that they can actually see you in action,
Mm-hmm.
so they
Mm-hmm.
know how to give it to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Uh, what what's a small, consistent practice that helps you stay connected to your purpose?
Um, I think really conversations with my mother,
Hmm.
um, making sure that she sees what I'm doing,
Hmm.
and making sure that I let her know that I'm still connected to all of um the things that she has taught, me and my sisters, and making sure that she knows that I'm okay with still being in those communities that we were always in,
Right.
as growing up, that we're practicing our, principles of Kwanzaa, and that we, just those type of things keep me kind of grounded.
Grounded. Hmm.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
because I it's weird out here, and you need to I need, we need something to hold on to,
Yes.
And one thing that has been really, really, really good, that even though we moved away from our cultural community in New York and came down here to Atlanta, is that my mother has really, made it her business to kind of keep that cultural community here also. And it took a while. It
Hmm.
wasn't, but I think that even she missed it. She missed what she was into in New York
York, yeah.
and realized that there were people who she was connected to in New York who moved down to Georgia. And so now she was like, you know what?
Let me create this
Let me
community.
create this, and
Yeah,
if it's out of selfishness for her right now, it would be, but once it manifested, um
oh,
it would
it's great. We
it's been a
enjoy
great thing.
we enjoy Freddie D's Day on
Yeah.
July 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, and we enjoy Imani's breakfast
Yeah.
January 1st, because
Yes.
we're building, it's a community that was
hmm
built through that. So
Yeah,
I'm
and I think that that's
thankful.
really kind of that's been consistent, in
Yeah.
my life,
Yeah.
and which I think is really, really good. When we were young, we were rebellious of, with a lot of things that were going on that our parents had us into, and we were even scared. I've had to have conversations with my mom and my aunt in regards to us participating in protests when we were young, you
Ooh,
know,
that's a
when
big
it came
one.
to apartheid and
Yes,
and what was going on in our communities.
that's
And
right.
so now it's so crazy. And this, we would have conversations over the years. I'm like, y'all don't even realize y'all would take a group of like young kids, less than 12 years old, and take them to the United Nations. And we're out there protesting against,
Right.
and, horses and the
Right.
police
That's
officers.
very traumatic. It's
That's
very traumatic.
traumatic,
Yes, yes,
traumatic,
yes, yes, yes.
and then look what's happening now.
Right, right.
And I'm like, and and sometimes, and I told my mother, sometimes as much as I get that urge to run out there and be participate in these protests, I think the trauma from
Oh
what we
my.
experienced as young adult,
Yes,
young children,
yes.
when we were, in these settings, has kind of like put a
Taking a
fear.
toll.
It's
Yes.
taken a toll,
Yes,
and
I,
so.
I resonate with you on that. I've worked through some inner child stuff behind
hmm
that.
hmm
I do not like crowds,
hmm hmm
very, very private person.
hmm
But it was quite traumatic. So I totally agree with you on that. And so now with everything that is going on in the world, I, I'm not tuned. I can't even watch the news right
It's
now.
so hard to tune in.
Yes.
And I do tune in a lot. I don't watch the news. I haven't watched a news program in so many years, but I do pay attention to what's going on in the, on,
Right.
the internet, social media, and things like that. And it can really destroy you, especially when you've already experienced, these kind of settings, and the fact that, yes, humanity, the human in you wants you to, go out there and be a part of it, and
Right.
the
Right.
trauma, kind of holds you back, and it's like you don't even, all of those values that you've learned as this young person, in
Mhm.
regards to, your African American community or community, in general, is kind of like held back. It's kind of, held back. And sometimes, so right now, like sometimes I end up in these like kind of places of guilt, like,
Are you doing enough?
am I doing enough,
Right. What can I do to keep
what can I
myself
do?
safe? Right.
hmm
Well, let me ask you, what advice would you give someone who's navigating through these transitional times,
hmm
maybe some loss, people losing their jobs,
hmm
uncertainty? Like,
hmm
what advice would you give someone who's dealing with this?
I think that we just have to, like even me, because it's what I'm doing right now. It's like
Now,
we have to really be dependent upon, the people who are around us. We're not used to, always calling on people around us, because we are, we have this facade of being resilient and strong
oh, yes.
all the
Right.
time.
Right.
And, I have I kind of say to myself, luckily I have a group of friends who pay attention, and we have to really, really pay attention to each other and, offer, you have to offer yourself up. You have to
Right.
tell people, if you need something, let me know, or you have to be that person who, if you need something, let them know. Because I don't
Right.
think that anyone will be able to, survive, the storm without, the people around them.
So
Um,
the hairs are standing on my arms right now, which
mm,
tells me, this is my spirit, my angels kind of speaking to me because
mm,
it's taking us right back to the season that you're in.
mhm, mhm,
Being vulnerable,
mhm,
building
mhm.
community,
Yep.
right? And being
Mhm,
vulnerable to ask for help,
mhm,
to receive it,
mhm.
and also to give it
Yep.
when it's
Yep.
needed.
You have to be in all of those places. And one thing that genealogy, I speak about this when I do presentations, and because I really do love the work that I do. And even, um, even when it's tough, we read things and we see things through this research that are tough.
Hmm.
But one thing that I've learned just from doing my own genealogy, the research on my family and knowing what my ancestors have gone through, I have developed this idea of, like, my big question is like, how dare I? So I do not do a lot of complaining.
Mm.
And the reason why I don't do a lot of complaining is because my ancestors did not have the opportunity to complain. And when I look at the evidence, because I have the evidence, when I look at because that's what genealogy is, you better have the evidence. So when I look at the evidence and I read exactly what it is that went my ancestor has gone through, my question to myself when I come to a struggle or a turning point, or questioning, whether or not I'm capable or something, this is the most powerful question I have to myself is really, how dare I? How dare I complain? How dare I not put my first foot forward? How dare I not, speak on it?
Mm.
And it so that even hurts my feelings sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Questioning myself in those places, in those spaces and places and times where, I have to step back and be like, oh man, there's just no way in the world you about to just, you know, not push through.
My last question, I was going to ask for a mantra, right? A scripture or a phrase, and you just gave it to us, right?
Yes,
How
that's
dare
really
I?
it for me.
How dare I?
Yeah, how dare I? That's really, really,
Mm.
really it for me. Every single time something comes up in my life where I feel like it's a struggle, no matter what it is. It's relationships, it's with my children, it's with my mom, it's with, what's going on in my household, it's with, oh, can I do all of this all at once? It's with my career, it's with,
Mm.
looking forward past my career. Every single time I start to question, it's like, how dare I question this? Because they didn't get the opportunity to do that. They had to
So,
keep pushing, and I'm talking about specifically um my fourth great grandmother, Mary Finley. Like, I've read a deposition. Her son had ran away from the plantation
mm,
and joined the US colored troops. And her and her husband had not heard from him in, past the end of the war. And there was a period of, at a certain time, um, Black soldiers were able to apply for pensions. And also, if the soldier had passed away, their widow or their parent could apply for a pension.
mhm.
And she did not know whether her son was alive or dead. And so she went and she applied, her and her husband went and applied for the pension. When you do that, when you go to when they had to go and apply for these pensions, they usually go to a office, and there's either somebody they're saying their words and someone is writing them down, because of course they are in situations where they could not read or write.
Correct.
And so what they are giving is a deposition, and their deposition is there. They are basically proving who they are. Like, I have to prove that she has to prove that she's the mother of this soldier.
Right.
She has, and she has to get witnesses to say that she's the mother of this soldier. And
Mm.
so she tells that they ask questions and she answers the questions. And one of the witnesses said in his deposition that she was a woman who did not have much, and that she would be she sold molasses.
Mm.
And she got the molasses from down on the docks, where she would be scraping it off of the bins from the outside. It would be the molasses that's dripping out of the barrel.
Mm.
And she would be scraping it off of there, and she would make molasses cakes or cookies. And she would be on the street and she would be selling those. And so every single time I have to think about, am I don't have it that bad.
Right. Right.
I don't have it that bad. I'm not in that particular time of history, and I don't have it that bad. And so how dare I complain about this? This, whatever is going on, is minor leagues.
Right. And if
It's,
she figured it out, I can
yes,
figure out what's going
right.
on.
Because had she not figured it out, I wouldn't even be here.
Be here. Mm. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us on
Yes.
Purpose to Power. Thank you for the takeaways. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for sharing your story. Um, if you want to know more about Akousa's story, I think there's a exhibition at the
Yes, yes.
International
African American Museum in
Museum in
Charleston
Charleston. Yeah.
is about the journey into genealogy. And it includes Kimberly Morgan, because she is my friend, and the 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 turning point in my genealogy life really kind of happened when I met her.
Okay.
And so we had been doing genealogy together for several years on my family history, and uncovered so much. And so when they decided to build the museum, they asked us to contribute to the exhibit. So when you go,
Well,
and
we're
it's
going to
based.
put all of that in the
Mhm.
description box.
Yeah,
I just want to personally thank you
you're
for
welcome.
dropping those gems and just sharing and engaging with me.
Mhm.
I've learned so much, even though we've known each other,
Right.
right, since four. I
Oh,
feel like
right.
I'm learning another
Right.
part of who you are, right,
Right.
for the very
Right.
first time. So I
Hmm.
really, really,
Hmm.
really appreciate you. I thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It's been wonderful. I actually do enjoy, I don't prepare really well for it, but I do enjoy doing these. And so,
Yes,
this is the
yes.
first step. And I've been talking to Kim, and we got to start doing our podcast and our, thing also.
Indeed,
And
indeed.
so
Pat yourself on the back.
yes,
Pat
thank you.
yourself
Thank
on the
you. Yep.
back.
Pat
Yes, yes. There
myself.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
All right.
thank you
Until
so much,
next
McKinney.
time.
I so appreciate it.
Same. Thank you.
Mhm.